Hello and welcome to the first episode of the brand new series, Riding Shotgun. I'm not dyslexic, but my partner is, where I talk to someone who is a partner, maybe in life, maybe in business, with someone who is dyslexic. And today I'm thrilled to be able to say I'm talking to the wonderful Charlott Mcansh, who is married to someone with dyslexia and also the business partner of that same person with dyslexia. So two for the price of one. Welcome, Charlott.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, guys. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Well, it's a pleasure to be able to talk to you because obviously I spend most of my time talking to people with dyslexia, ADHD, and so on and so forth. And it occurred recently, someone said that it'd be interesting to talk to partners. So I'm very excited to find out what it is like living with someone and working with someone with dyslexia. So first impressions, then, Charlott, what's your response?
It's an adventure. That's the first response. You have to be prepared for sort of, living outside the box and seeing opportunities, and adventure, I think, is one of them, definitely.
That's a very open-minded and positive outlook, because that's how you are. And what's interesting, though, is to me, is how much about dyslexia did you know before you met your husband and partner?
Not very much, if I'm going to be honest. I have shared a story with you previously about a guy I used to work with who his escape when he was in school was music. And I knew that he was dyslexic, and I knew he was he needed to kind of find the energy from somewhere else, and his writing was terrible, so he needed help with that, filling out forms and things like that. And working with him just made me kind of give a little bit of an eye-opener what it could be like, because reading and writing is something that I love and I've always loved, and it just comes naturally. So for somebody that it doesn't come naturally for, it was quite an eye-opener. So I knew it just a little bit when I met Jamie.
And so how do you manage the impact of his dyslexia? How does it manifest itself, I suppose, in the day?
In the day itself, I think you have to plan ahead. And the one thing we've learned so much since working with you, actually, and because there were a lot of things that we didn't know beforehand, and he didn't know either, that he easily gets overwhelmed. And he thought it was probably just the personality sort of reaction, that he was just like that. And then by working with you and kind of working as a couple, realized, some things just get him really overwhelmed and out of control. So he doesn't really know how to absorb it all, and the information can be hard to retain. So it's planning those conversations, and that's something that we've adapted for, especially in the business life. You can't just kind of have a banter between the office. You need to sort of say, right, in 10 minutes, can we have a chat? Because otherwise it will be too much of an overwhelm. Going back to the task he was doing would take him a lot longer. So it's just planning those little conversations, which sometimes can be a bit hard because I'm kind of an explosion, and things will just come out, and an idea come up or something pops up and I just want to talk about it. So I have to kind of stop myself and go, right, okay, can we have a chat at 12 o'clock? And it's got to be on time as well.
It's interesting, because I suppose what I'm digging for, in a way, is that when I talk to people with dyslexia through coaching and informally, often we talk about strategies and ways to deal with the challenges that dyslexia throws up. So it's the kind of normal run-of-the-mill stuff, get it out of your head, make it visual, so on and so forth. And I guess what I'm wondering about is, do you then, as a partner, have your own set of strategies, as you have suggested here, to manage the impact of dyslexia? Because you don't want to, I guess, antagonize the dyslexic challenges.
No, and you have to learn. I think it's like with any sort of personality, you learn about that person. But with dyslexia, I think as well, it's really important to understand that it's not just a little bit of overwhelm. It's not just a little bit of kind of something that comes into your mind and you don't know what to do. It's actually quite distracting, and it can be very upsetting. So I think the main thing to think about is that you're actually taking it on board and being serious about it and understanding it. And lists is a massive, so like you say about strategies. And I think that's something to not just living with somebody with dyslexia, but also working with somebody with dyslexia is something that we really need to understand, that some people just require to have a different kind of method. So making lists is a big thing, and writing things down really, really helps us. And that's what I've had to kind of implement in the working business life, is not throwing things out there, not sort of just on the spot. It needs to be kind of on a list, and it needs to be managed in that way.
I suppose some people might feel that level of preparation and organization could kill off spontaneity, because if you come up with a great idea, you've got to do something with it, haven't you? Do you carry a notebook around, or
I carry millions of notebooks, Guy. I have about 10 different notebooks for all different kind of sorts. And we also use a channel called Slack. So that is like an instant messaging, but it's sort of through the work day. And when I get ideas, I put it in that channel. And then it's up to Jamie then to kind of be able to watch it or look, at it when he has a moment in between tasks. And that's a way to explore, I guess, when you get ideas and you want to get it out there and you need to talk to someone. You just sort of instant messaging works really well, because it's a form of communication, even if we're sitting in two different rooms in the same house, but without disturbing the person. So yeah, I think that's a really good way of implementing some kind of banter, if you like, but at their own time.
It's earlier today, someone was telling me where they work in a small office, small company with several people with neurodiverse conditions. They use Slack because previously they were using emails, and there were just millions of them. And some of them sometimes it's just like a one-word thing. You just want to acknowledge what someone else has said. So whereas something like Slack was so much better for managing that flow of information, because it captures it, doesn't it? It gives you the chance to put your bit in. It's still there for looking at later, and it's a good technological outsource for ideas.
Yeah, and I think there's lots of those little tools that we need to kind of look at more and more, especially with dyslexia. There's so many great gadgets out there that can help, and little things like Slack can really be useful and make such a difference.
They do. And as you say, they're quite small things, but make a big difference. So when you're planning your day, is it straightforward to kind of mix and match the tasks that have to be done according to strengths? Or do you always get all the boring, ready, righty stuff, and Jamie always has the fun stuff? Does that cause bitterness and resentment? Or how do you keep the joy?
I think the most important thing, whether you're working with somebody as your partner being dyslexic, or whether you're just sort of a working couple, is that you have different tasks. And even more so, I think, when you have somebody who's got a neurodiverse condition, that needs perhaps lists and maybe need a little bit more time, sometimes writing, can't be disturbed, that sort of thing. I think it's just about acknowledging that. So we very much have separate offices, and we get together for brainstorming when it's a time sort of dedicated to that. And the one thing that Jamie is not good at is if that changes. It needs to be planned, and it needs to be changed, and it needs to be on time. And I think that's something that you really got to respect. So yeah, we do have very separate sort of office days, if you like. and very separate tasks. But I also think that's the strength, because we've acknowledged the fact of what we're good at and what the other person is good at, and we kind of combine the two to make it work.
It sounds, well, we know it is a hugely successful partnership, and it's nice as well because you have your online presence, isn't it? It's nice to have that united front as well, isn't it, to see it working so well. But the other thing that's interesting as well is at the end of the day, then, when you stop being the business owners, how is dyslexia a thing at all, or is it just, because no one wants to be defined by single characteristics. It's we're all people, aren't we, with lots of different aspects to us. So does it impinge on civilian life?
I think it did in the beginning, because I didn't understand a lot of things, and one of them was time, because I was always somebody who was running late. And if I run late and we need to go somewhere, that's a massive abstraction, and it gets Jamie into complete overwhelm. And the first time it happened, I thought, gosh, it's that's a bit much. I'm only 5 minutes late. But it's not just about being 5 minutes late. It's the whole kind of panic about things and the overwhelm that comes with it. That for somebody else might be something completely different. So for me, for example, to stand up in a crowd of 10,000 people, that would put me into overwhelm. But for Jamie, that's completely normal. He'd be absolutely fine. So I think it's about the understanding and kind of putting that into perspective, and realize that 5 minutes late means the end of the world at that point in that time. And one thing that we also, time is a big thing, because as you know, Jamie doesn't tell the clock, and I just thought that was something that he didn't do, but it's also to do with his dyslexia, and that's something else. So we've been learning all those little things along the way, and how to kind of adapt to them and make them work.
It's do you know what I've learned from talking to people with dyslexia and people without dyslexia is that the most important thing is not to make assumptions, and that you have to keep asking questions to make sure you've understood things from other people's perspectives as well as your own, isn't it? It's so easy to think, oh, they can't tell the time because of, well, I don't know, they can't tell the time, and maybe they will next time, and it's very annoying, and then you get wrapped up in your own feelings about it. But actually, you've got to stop and think, haven't you, when these things happen regularly, and think, this is a thing, we've got to work around it, how are we going to do this? It's all about communication, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely about communication. And I think it's the whole thing about the communicating and planning and supporting sort of each other as well. And with Jamie, there's so many different other positives as well, because he's very, very good at solutions. Where there is something, so if you think that something won't work, he will make it work. And that's something that we realized can be quite common with people with dyslexia as well, because they've always been able to think outside the box. And he also likes everything to be tidy. So if you're doing a house project or something like that, it's got to be tidied up at the end of the day, which is something that I absolutely love, because I lived in a house project for 4 years for a little while. So that was a challenge. So there's lots of different positives, and I think we need to learn to see the positives. And I think the whole way about how to treat people with different neurodiverse conditions really needs to change, because it could be such a positive thing, both for a company, living with someone. It's just about, like we were saying, adapting, communicating and understanding.
Yeah, absolutely right. And it's so easy to see the challenges of dyslexia, which is what I've been harping on about. So I'm glad you raised that, because what it takes, isn't it, when living and working with people with neurodiverse thinking, is to have an open mind to what they are saying, to the options that they throw up, rather than thinking, oh no, that's different, and feel insecure about it. I guess it's a leap of faith at first, and then you learn to trust people. And that is a wonderful thing, isn't it? Because it means you can, that's where innovation comes from, isn't it? It's a creative thing, and it's a joy to behold.
It's an absolute joy, and it's a great sort of way to kind of run the company when you have somebody in the company that has that ability to kind of, and then you've got to work through, you know, you've got to work through the ideas and go, is this an idea that can work? How is it going to work? And come down to the planet a little bit as well, and kind of put it into perspective. But it's fascinating, and it's very creative, and yeah, like you said, it's where innovation comes from.
It is. Well, that is such a positive thing that it's time to wrap it up, and what a wonderful note upon which to finish. So thank you so much, Charlott Mcansh, for sharing all that fascinating insight. And it's just, you know, it leaves us, well, we both got a big smile on our faces, isn't it? Because it's great to see the, you know, what an open mind and communication brings, doesn't it? Because it brings creativity, happiness, people working together, and positive outcomes. And that makes the world a better place.
Absolutely.
So, thank you ever so much.
Thank you so much, Guy. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for taking the time to watch today's video. If you found this video useful, then why not take a look at this one? I'll see you in my next video. Bye for now.